Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Kim and I'm here at the Free Tax Prep LA as a tax assistant. And now I'm going to be covering section 6, which is all about finishing touches. Here we'll be talking about the Affordable Care Act as well as any tax withholdings, as well as discussing refunds or amount due and going over the California state tax return briefly. And then we're also just going to be finishing out the tax return. So, the Affordable Care Act. This was expanded funding to cover more children and adults with insurance payments assistance and government programs, stuff such as Medi-Cal or Medicare. This provided funding to assist individuals to pay for their insurance on the marketplace. And specifically for California, this is new. Starting from 2020, California will start to charge a fee for not having insurance coverage. There are some exceptions, and however, there is no fee for not having insurance on the federal return. And here in California, the Affordable Care Act marketplace is better known as Covered California. So, if a client had insurance from the marketplace or Covered California, they would be receiving two forms. We'll go over the first one, which would be the form 1095A, and this is a required tax document that we need in order to file the taxes if the taxpayer had Covered California. It's available at www.coveredca.com, and it's usually also mailed to the client at the start of the year. And it can be accessed by an enrollment specialist as well. You need to have the Form 1095A as well as the FTB 3895, which is the second form, if you had health insurance through the marketplace. So here's the corresponding form 3895. This is a required tax document for the state of California, whereas where the 1095A is used to for the federal tax return, this form, the 3895, is for the state return. Again, Covered California Marketplace issues this form to the client. It's usually mailed at the start of the year, and this gets reported to the Franchise Tax Board for any individuals who were enrolled in a qualified health plan through Covered California. So, how do we put this in? So, once you finish putting in all the federal information, uh, on our TaxLayer software, the next big tab would be the health insurance form. On there, it asks if the client has received the Form 1095A, and then if they did, you mark yes, and then it goes to a following page where it asks for all the information from the Form 1095A. In the first column, under monthly premium amount, this is the actual cost of the health insurance. The second column, which is the monthly premium amount of the SLCSP, or second lowest cost of the silver plan. And the third amount is the monthly advance payment of the premium tax credit. So most of the time, you'll notice that all the information on here has the same numbers. However, there are certain cases where the numbers located on these boxes are different from one another. So always please take care to make sure you are putting in the accurate numbers into our TaxLayer software. So now let's just go back to this, getting to know the Form 1040. In the beginning, we got all the taxpayer information, and then we determined their filing status, and then we added up all the income and then applied any sort of adjustments, as well as applied either the standard deduction or itemized deduction. And from there, that's how we got the tax that the taxpayers owed throughout the year. And then we offset that with any sort of credits. And now we would apply any sort of taxes that were withheld throughout the year in order to get the refund or amount due. So once we applied all the credits, there is a way the clients can lower their tax even further. We would be doing that by taking all the values from any withholdings that they had throughout the year. Where can we find this information? We would be able to find all of that information usually in box 2 of any of the following forms, which would include the W-2, 1099 INT, 1099G, 1099R, and W-2G. As you can see here, box 2, which would be the federal income tax withheld, uh, we highlighted here, and it's a value of 280. And at the very bottom, this is state income tax withheld of 150. This state tax information is transferred not on the 1040, but on the state tax return, which is the California 540. So let's say a client owes at the end of calculating all of this. There are a couple of options that they would be able to uh, pay this amount. One would be through a credit card or debit card. The other would be to pay by a check to the US Treasury, or they would be able to do an online payment agreement or electronic funds withdrawal at the tax filing date. Usually, in order to avoid paying in the future, if they are an employee or receiving a pension, we recommend that they adjust their withholdings using a Form W-4 for the employer or a Form W-4P for anyone receiving the pensions. And another note, just avoid any sort of, try to have them avoid any penalties from retirement withdrawals. And for anyone who is uh, who has cash income or self-employment income, we would recommend that they make estimated payments throughout the year or capital gains. So let's say a client actually mentioned that, hey, I made estimated tax payments for this year because I was expecting to owe. We would be able to put all that information in our taxlayer software in order to take that into account as well. So here's a little screen grab of how it looks on our TaxSlayer software. You can see under federal section, just go under payment and estimates. And there we at the very top, we can see federal estimated tax payments. We would click that in order to put in all the values for what the taxpayer has paid throughout the year. And let's say for the other instance, the client is getting a refund. We do have two options for that. One, the client can receive their refund as a check in the mail, and usually this takes about 5 to 7 weeks. So that because of that, we usually try to recommend that the client get it as a direct deposit. This usually takes around 10 to 14 days, and it's secure. You don't have to worry about someone going through your mail. And there are other options if the client wants to split their refunds amount in however way they want, or use their refund in order to purchase a U.S. bond. We would request that by using the form 8888. And for the California return for 2022, we do have the renter's credit. As of right now, it is a flat rate for anyone who is filing single. And if they're renting, they would be eligible for $60 in renter's credit. However, there is an income limit of 49,220. And same for head of household or married filing statuses. Um, in that case, the renter's credit would be $120, and for them, the maximum income limit would be $98,440. This is a non-refundable credit. So remember, non-refundable credits only lower tax amount. You can't get it as a refund. But for some eligibility, the taxpayer cannot live in a subsidized Section 8 or low-income housing, and they must rent in California for at least 6 months. And there are head of household worksheets as well as dependent care worksheets for the California return itself. For the California return as well. And the California earned income tax credit is up to $3,417 for low income tax filers. And there's also a young child tax credit for the California return, and it's up to $1,083 per child. Now let's go on to some finishing touches. When you're quality reviewing, first thing you should be looking at is the taxpayers and spouses' identity is verified with a photo ID. Second, the volunteer return preparer and or quality reviewer are certified to prepare/review this return. Third thing, just make sure that all unsure boxes were discussed with the taxpayer and correctly mark yes or no, depending on the conversation. And for number four, make sure that the information on page 1 and 2 of the intake, as well as any sort of document, as any sort of tax return was input correctly. And make sure that the names, social security numbers or ITIN numbers, and EIN numbers were verified and correctly transferred onto the return. And for number 6, make sure that the filing status was verified and correct. Don't know why we skipped number 7, but for number 8, make sure that all income, including income with or without source documents, were checked yes in part 3 of the intake form and was correctly transferred to the tax return. And number 9, make sure that any adjustments made were correct. And number 10, make sure that any additional standard deduction or itemized deductions are also correct. Number 11, make sure all credits are correctly reported. Number 12, make sure that all the withholdings shown on Forms W-2 or any 1099s and estimated tax payments are correctly reported as well. And for number 13, if the taxpayer wants it to be directly deposited or directly debited, make sure that the checking or savings account numbers are correct, as well as the routing numbers. And number 14, make sure that the site ID number is correct on the return. And before we finish, make sure that the taxpayer was advised that they are responsible for the information that is on the return. And once you go through all of that, and the taxpayer is okay, they've confirmed everything, everything is correct. Now we need the clients to sign these forms, the IRS 8879, as well as the corresponding California form. What these forms are, if these forms basically allow the site to e-file their tax return so that the taxpayer doesn't have to mail anything out. We would be e-filing this in their stead, so make sure to get their signatures here. And one is for the IRS and the other is for the state return. So just as a recap for finishing touches, if you're a Vitus site coordinator, make sure that the quality reviewer examines the return with the client that's present, and make sure to check and compare all the social security cards, names, EINs on the W-2s, and interview the client about dependents, and ask if there's any other income, like maybe they're not reporting cash income. As a Vitus tax preparer, make sure to print the return. The clients need to sign the e-file 8879 for IRS in California if they want us to e-file it for them. And make sure the client fills out the quality survey and print after the quality review by a peer. This is just so that if there was a mistake spotted by the quality reviewer, you wouldn't have to reprint the new one. Just get a quality review and then have it printed. And then make sure that the client takes the entire tax return as a copy. And if you're a Vitus tax preparer, again, we keep all the intake, surveys, the 8879, which is the e-file permission, as well as any photocopies of the tax documents. Once you got all that, now we move on to the next client. So here's a couple of next steps that you guys can take. Just make sure you know our website, which is www.volunteertaxprep.com. On there, we have links to the Taxpayer Practice Lab, as well as links to where to get the Vitus certification test. And we have all sorts of video recorded training such as this from the Franchise Tax Board, as well as Property Now. And on there, we will be posting upcoming tax layer trainings, return trainings, or any other in-class trainings. And just some final words of advice, make sure to practice, practice, and practice. So, thank you for listening to our training. Uh, if you want to contact us, our information is right here at freetaxes@kyccla.org, or you can give us a call at 213-365-7400.